Hey y'all. So today we're gonna have a conversation that is more than likely gonna ruffle a few feathers, but I'm not quite concerned about all that, if I'm being honest. I wanted to make a quick video on where I come from and my background. So as you can tell, well, actually not everybody can tell, but I am mulatto, I am mixed, I am white, and I'm black. I find that my parents are two opposites that obviously were attracted at one point. Yes, so my father is Caucasian. He was born and raised in Canada, and my mother is Jamaican and was born and raised in Jamaica. So my mom was 20 years old when she had me, and my dad was about 30 plus. Let's just say around that range. From my understanding, my father grew up in the small town where his mother and father raised their family, and him and his high school sweetheart, they ended up venturing off, as people do in those types of towns and environments and settings, ended up having a family of their own and had two children. So I do have a Canadian brother and sister. With that being said, as I mentioned, from my understanding, my father got into trouble with the law, and so that took him to Jamaica, where he lived for 11 years and had taken his wife at the time and two small children to live. They eventually left him there, and that's where he found himself with Jamaican babies, and me being one of them. So I suppose they had decisions to make on how to raise the children that they decided to have. My mother didn't want me going anywhere until I was of age to remember and understand that she was my mother and she is who I came from. So I was 6 years old when I moved to Canada. And prior to that, I was born and lived in Jamaica with my mother and my stepfather. So I do have a stepmother who is Jamaican, and I also have a stepfather who is Jamaican as well. From what I remember, from my understanding, actually, there's facts that back it up, but my stepfather treated me like the princess that I am and treated me as one of his own. So, what happened though was it was obvious that him and my mother were looking to have a life of their own. So they had two children following me. So they had a girl, and then they had my brother after that. I'm really unsure of all the logistics that happened there, but in the midst of it, my mother found herself in Trinidad, which is where she currently resides. So I have a younger brother who is also Trinidadian, making me amongst the 10 siblings that I have, could be more or less, but I am considered an only child. Yes, believe it or not. So I am the only child that my mom and dad had. As I mentioned, I find that they come from two totally different worlds. So, my mother, I find that she was young when she had her first child, and to be honest, she did not want a child, but she did the very best that she could to raise me, teaching me actually all sorts of things before I left there, like how to wash clothes by hand, and also how to cook. I found myself as an individual that liked to figure out and learn how to do things on my own so that I was never reliant on anybody, whether that be my parents or not. Because at the end of the day, you know, your parents don't owe you anything. They did their deed by, I suppose, having you, because they are your genetic donors. But I found that being as young as she is, her and I find myself at this point, growing up together. It was as if we were finding life out together and growing up together. But as I mentioned, she did her very best. She treated me like the queen I am. Yes. She not only gave me the basic necessities, like, you know, a roof over my head. She actually is a really hard worker. I do have memories of her, you know, leaving me at home as a young kid, locking the door behind her and leaving me all day there with the food I needed, and just told me to sleep, you know, while she would work and come back. So anyway, she did that and more. She wanted to make sure that I was taken care of, and anybody that from the outside looking in could see that. So, you know, she even had me get my nails done at the age of 13. I would always have my hair done, you know, would go to the salon to get it braided, beaded, that type thing. So very fortunate, I do have to say. But apart from that, yeah, I found myself in Canada, and I was very fortunate because my father grew up in a two-parent household. Now, I found that that doesn't always go to say that that person is better off, because, you know, kids will be kids. People are gonna do what they want at the end of the day, and it doesn't always mean it's the best thing for them or anybody else, quite frankly. But anyway, I did have my grandparents around while I was growing up, so I felt as though my needs were met there. But amongst having so many different siblings, I do feel as though there were negligence, you know, even though, as we all know, our parents did the very best they could. You know, I'm not here to put anybody down, but it is just my reality. You know, this is my story. So, you know, if you want the smoke, I'll smoke you out. So, yeah. Apart from that, as I mentioned, growing up with so many siblings was a blessing. But also a curse, because as I mentioned, not each and every child's needs are met as they should be. So for me personally, with time and age and experience of my own, I understand this, and I recognize that I do want to have children of my own, but I don't necessarily need to have, or not the Brady Bunch, like I don't need to have more than two. But I do want to have more than one, because I understand that having siblings and someone to grow along as, you know, your blood is important. And as I mentioned, it was a blessing. So it's funny though, I do find myself relating more to my step sibling, who is a full Jamaican, and as many siblings as I mentioned that I have, because there was also a mix of us as well. Like I mentioned, I have Canadian siblings, Jamaican siblings, a little Trinidadian brother, and also a few of us that were in between who are also all mulatto. So you know, it just goes to say, like, the next person can relate to you in very different ways, and they could be somebody that lives on the opposite side of the earth. So anyway, I found that I could relate to my stepsister more than I could my blood. So with that being said, I do want to state that I think that it's important to know as children. I made this video to not only express myself and release these things, but also for anybody that might come across the video and need to hear it, or to kind of understand that at the end of the day, we're our own individual selves. We chose our parents, praise God. I chose who I wanted to be. I chose to come into this world as a mixed black and white. And from what I can understand now, from my understanding and understanding, it was all for a reason. Some people are gonna say there's no in between. Well, here I am. Yeah. So, and that life wasn't for anybody else to live but for me. And was I able to live and learn? Yes, I was able to have experiences, live life, and understand what's going to work for me going forward. And I recognize that the way that my parents went about things are maybe things that I'm going to do differently. I'm going to make sure that my kids have a healthy mother, they have stability, that they understand what true love is, and that they know that they can have any and every little thing that they put their mind to, as long as they are determined, as long as they have honesty, not just within themselves, but with people, with life, and that they should have integrity in order to get them to where they want to be in life. And that they have a life of their own to live authentically. I find myself here now living this life of my own on this journey, and I find I'm living in my purpose, and everything just comes to me easily. It's easier for me to manifest what it is that I want because I'm living in my purpose. Everything just comes to me easily, whether that's money, material things. I find myself prophesizing things, and you know what they say about prophecies, and people that get them is that they should not return back home. So that's where I feel that I am currently, is kind of just like justifying myself and saying, that was your past and that happened, but that's okay, and you will be okay moving forward. I feel as though I was having those types of experiences, which was like very karmic, and I would say, I don't want to say it was all trauma. I do understand that most kids actually only remember trauma from their upbringing and their childhood. But for me, I definitely have some amazing memories, because for me, it's very easy for me to make friends. So, you know what I mean? I could go any and everywhere. I could literally step outside of my door anywhere, at any point, and make a friend just off the whim, because my intentions are typically, I mean well. You know what I mean? And it's not always to say that that's a lifelong friend, but when I pour into someone, I expect for that friendship to last for a lifetime. And if not, that's totally okay, and that's what I'm understanding with life, and as I live my life. For me, also, I want to mention that as a child, you do not owe your parents anything. You don't owe them a thing, whether that is financially, whether that is emotionally. You don't owe them. If anything, you owe it to them not only to them, but to yourself, to become the best version of who you are supposed to be in this lifetime. Become the best you and pass it down. I feel like I have already broken so many generational curses. And just to name a few is by not having children before I was ready, before my time, and not having 10 children, and not having more than one baby father. That was just something I was not willing to do. Mind you, there were times that I thought that's what my destiny was, but as I mentioned, I recognize that it's my life to live and I'm going to create it as I want. And my children are going to know what it's like to have a 2-parent household that has unconditional love for them and that can teach them, guide them, care for them, and do all the things that a parent is to do for their child. I want to be in a state where I feel like I want to have children, where I want to be the best that I can be for them, to give them a life that they deserve. But yeah, that kind of concludes my topic of how I grew up, my childhood, and where I come from. That's honestly just the surface level of it, but I did just want to touch bases because I know people are curious about me and what I have going on, and I just want to say, like, I didn't come from all rainbows and butterflies and unicorns. Like, I definitely have had to figure it out on my own. This has been a journey, but an amazing journey nonetheless. I'm very grateful to be able to live this life that I have. I was able to come to Canada, which is the land of the free, and I definitely took advantage of that. I'm not gonna lie. And I will continue to do that no matter where I am or who's around me, because generally I'm not only living for myself, but I want people who are surrounded by me, and even people who may even look up to me, may even not want to admit that they look up to me, that they too can do it with whatever they have, wherever they have, or wherever they are. But yeah, as always, comment, like, and share the vibes. I will be back. Not sure what we'll be touching on next, but if you made it this far, thank you for tapping in, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the other side.